Hello, fabulous listeners. Thanks for tuning in to Old Bodies Outside. This is your host, Brian Peterson, and this is our post race interview with Paul Jesse. We conducted his pre race hard rock interview on episode number 66. And on that, we heard about Paul's preparations for hard rock. Hard rock just occurred this past Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's a 48-hour race. Paul finished it on Saturday. Today is Tuesday, and we're going to today hear about how his race went, how he thought his preparations went, what he learned, what he would do different, all that jazz. So, Paul, thanks for coming back to Old Bodies Outside.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about how things went out there.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, from my standpoint, first off, I want to thank you for the shirt here. I'm wearing your shirt that you bought me. From my standpoint, it was a very beautiful race, and there was some words that for those listening out there, I got to pace Paul for the last 18 or so miles, 18 plus miles, and something that really resonated with me throughout pacing Paul for those 18 miles, when it's like that's when you're really, just you got nothing left, no energy left. It's the end of the race. It's really, really hard. The word that resonated the strongest with me was impressive. Paul was chatty. We were talking the whole time. He was making really, really good decisions. It was a very abnormally hot year. And one of the things that Paul was doing is he was doing a great job of trying to lower his core temperature. In fact, there was one time where I look back and Paul's laying in a river just to lower his core temperature, which really is something that you need to pay attention to as you're out there racing. So after that first river crossing, at another river crossing, I was like, Paul, you got to lay down on this one, like cool it off. And it was great how Paul was going about lowering his core temperature too. He would lower himself into a river face first, get his face in there. Then he'd turn around and lower his back into it, so his whole body would get in there. So there was overall just a lot of good decision making out there. So Paul, impressive. It really was impressive.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. I guess spoiler alert, we should just let everybody know I did finish. So if you didn't track the race, I guess you can tune in and get the result and bounce now if you want. But if you want to hear about how it goes, it was a blast. I mean, yeah, I've been waiting for so long to do this race. And, after 5 different years of being out pacing the course, seeing every section of it, you think you've got a pretty good idea of what you're getting into. And when you spend that much time wanting it, you feel like you've got your head pretty wrapped around it. And then you do the whole thing at once and you realize you had no idea what you were talking about. It's the number one life lesson I'm taking from this race is that no matter how close you are to an experience, until you've had the experience yourself, you don't understand what it is. Getting to experience that entire course in one go, all the literal and figurative ups and downs that came through the race. It was a special experience, and being able to share it with you and the rest of the crew just made it that much better for sure.
Yeah, and I did want to give a shout out to the crew that you assembled. Everyone contributed and did such a great job. It was I only really got to see them when I was at the aid station to pick you up, which was Chapman Gulch, and everyone was there and they were contributing. They were just there helping. I mean, you had a fantastic crew, and I was super happy to make some new friends with them. They were all just the best people ever. It's a great crew you did there, so that helped a lot, I bet.
Yeah, I mean something to be said for them. I'm incredibly fortunate to have an amazing wife that is willing to never not miss these 100 milers. She won't not be the crew chief, and then the people that are willing to come out and help her make that happen are just you guys are all really good people. I think everybody that was on that crew for the most part has been involved in at least one of my other 100 milers. So the more we do this kind of stuff together, the better it gets. And then James was a new addition to the crew. He paced from Animus Force up and over to Uray, and we just had a blast out there. He's getting ready to do his first 100 miler up in Leadville, so getting to expose him to like the 100 mile scene in that capacity was just it's just the way I picked my pacers and stuff like that, and the people I asked to come out and crew for me. I do it because I know they're going to bring energy and so much positivity to the experience that when I start getting really low, it makes a massive difference to have that kind of energy around you.
Yeah, yeah. And they, overall, like that positivity was there with your crew, that energy was there with your crew. Your wife did such an amazing job. But overall, what I also was amazed about was the hard rock culture. It is such a positive culture. And if you were to go through on Instagram, on Hard Rock's Instagram profile, and they have this thing called the golden hour that occurs at 5 a.m. to 6 a.m., the last hour of the race. So the cutoff for the race is 48 hours. You get out there at 47 hours and you can watch the last hour of the race. There's maybe 2 or 3 people that finish. The amount of people out there watching at golden hour, amazing. It's just such a supportive, positive community. I mean, there were several times this weekend that I was blown away and had some happy
Yeah.
tears myself.
Yeah, well, I think they actually had 13 finishers in that golden hour this year.
No.
Like 13 people came in that last hour. Yeah, so there was action. Like if you went out, like that was one of the disappointing things about staying in Uray is not being in Silverton to be able to walk over in the morning for that.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, there was some action this year. They had like 13 finishers out like in that last hour. I'm pretty sure is what they said at the awards ceremony. But yeah, the culture out there is. It's why when I went out there for the first time in 2015, I was immediately addicted to not the mountains. I mean, I know those mountains are beautiful, but the people that surround the event they're just a different breed. It's not a group of people I've found anywhere else that I can think of. You know, and that can be said for the ultra community as a whole, but I do feel like there is a subset in the hard rock community that, when you become a part of that group, or even like you're on the ancillary of that group, which is what I always felt I was, just being able to watch them from the outside is pretty impressive. There's just the people I've gotten to pace. Betsy Kalmeyer finished for her 21st hard rock this year, 21 out of 23 attempts.
Wow.
She has finished what was the hardest race for me in my entire life. And she's 20 something years older than I am, Scotty Mills, pacing him when I did and his 10 finishes out there, just all these veterans. I spent miles and miles and miles with a woman named Darla from up in Oregon. And we've met through other races and then kind of gotten closer by seeing each other at Hard Rock over the years. Has to be one of the nicest, most positive, uplifting people in the world. So like you can spend time with someone like that in those mountains when things are really hard and, she's still smiling and giving you reasons to smile. Those are the kind of people that are just everywhere when you're out there. I think I spent 45 minutes in the post office in Silverton one day just talking to a random couple that I think they said they were in their 70s who just love the event. So they bought a house in Silverton forever ago and they come up and spend the summers here and just love seeing all the runners come into town. And it's a really good community around the event, not even just the people that are there for the event.
And the event, it's a nonprofit organization, right? That puts on the event. They got a board of directors and everyone's just doing it from their heart type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, the dedication from the people that put this race on is unbelievable. It's even if you just look at, not even the board of directors, but you look at aid station captains and some of the places they have aid stations in these mountains and what it takes to get stuff out there. I mean, you got to see two of the backcountry hiking aid stations and, you're running into this spot and you're like, well, I have a pretty good idea where the closest trailhead is and it's not very close. So they're hiking in these full aid stations, these places. There's a lot of the volunteers and the board of directors. They put their heart and soul into this event every year. It's an absolutely incredible experience to be able to get this catered tour of some of the most gorgeous mountains in the entire world.
And they do such a great job of being ambassadors too. So for the aid station that I picked you up at, Chapman Gulch, you had to hike in a little bit over 1.5 miles to get there. And so we walk in, we get there, and the aid station captain came up to us and was like, "Hey, who's your runner? Hey, this is what you can do." And he was just chit chatting with us and, so approachable and was asking us about who we are, where we're from. And was just a great ambassador for Hard Rock. I was really impressed. I've never had that happen to me at an aid station before.
Yeah. I mean, they really do. They love the sport. They love the spirit of that event and what it represents and what the people that are coming there to do it are willing to put themselves through in these mountains, because these people know these mountains, whether they actively get out into them or not, they are surrounded by them. So they have a sense of what is in these mountains. So they know the people that are going out there, they must love it as much as they do if they're willing to go out and actually do this thing. So they're so supportive of the runners that come into town. It's really cool.
Yeah, well, I highly recommend for anyone out there that even if you're not participating as an active runner in Hard Rock, to go out there and enjoy the community. Paul, why don't we transition to hearing a little bit about your race, and to kind of make it digestible, what if we were to break down your race into the 4 quarters, 0 to 25 miles. And there's so much that happens in 25 miles, but maybe something that's digestible. I mean, there's so much that happens in 25 miles, but what was it like for 0 to 25, 25 to 50, 50 to 75, 75 to 100? From my standpoint, I only saw you at the end and you had a lot, like you were strong, but like, how did you get to that point at the end to still have strength and to be strong? What did you do through all those different quarters?
Yeah, so I'm just gonna be looking off screen occasionally because I've got like the aid station chart pulled up on the other screen, so I can see, just have a visual reminder of where I'm at. But let's see. So the first 25, we'll just round that up to like the first 30, which takes me into Sherman, which is like so that is kind of a warm up in this direction. Like you still have some serious climbs. Like you start the race with a really long, like a pretty good long climb. And, it's a wake up call when you hit those first 2 climbs. You're like, oh, this is going to be a big day. These are really, really steep climbs, but everybody's in such good spirits at that point. You're just really chilling. Like I definitely did well, I think, of my goal of, I kept like one of the mantras I had for a very long time in the race is the slower I go now, the more fun I'm going to have at the end, because I really wanted to do everything I could to save my legs. So I went out like really mellow on the climbs. I didn't want to, I think Howie Stern told me something along the lines of, if you breathe hard at any point before Telluride, then you're going too fast. So I kind of had that in my mind, just like, keep the relaxed breathing, make sure you're keeping it nice and easy. On the downhills, just relax and do it. Don't go crazy. So that's all I was thinking about really for the first 30 miles for sure. Around mile 20 is where I got to meet up with Darla, and we shared miles from then until, up and over Handies. We were together for a while. So that was when things got real fun real special for me, was being able to share all those miles with her, and just like, all the random stuff that we talked about out there, the jokes and like the commisery as we're coming down into Sherman. The temps started getting really warm. That's when it really started getting hot. We're getting down under tree line. We're coming down the hill. We're just chatting away. We're talking about all kinds of stuff. And then all of a sudden we both start getting more quiet. And then we're just running in silence. And I'm thinking it. And then she says it first. And she just says, just in the same voice that I was saying in my head, just so depressed. You're like, Paul, it's really hot. And I was like, oh, yes, it is. And so we just suffered in misery together for a while after that. And those are the kind of experiences that are honestly the most vivid in my head at this point, as I still try and like mentally wrap my mind around everything that happened out there. It's those little things like that, or like the moments I got to share with other people on the course, is the thing that's standing out to me most as like my biggest takeaway from the race right now. And so like, that's when I got to start like sharing miles with her, which made it super special out there, because she's just, her and her husband Chris are just great people, and getting to see them out there was awesome. So yeah, the first 30 was good. It was nice and smooth, but it definitely started warming up.
Yeah. And during that first 30, what percentage of the train did you run?
So you start, it's pretty gradual. So you can leave, like you run out of town, and then I hiked on the very first hill. Like anything that was uphill was getting hiked. I didn't run anything that even remotely had any incline to it. It just didn't seem worth it. I can hike pretty well. So, if I really stretch out my legs and hike hard, I can conserve a lot of energy and still make decent time up some of those climbs, like those more gradual climbs. So I didn't even worry about that. The downhills were all run, but when I say run, I was literally calling it a jog all day. I'm like, to emphasize how easy I wanted to take it on those downhills, I would run all of them. And then there's a long stretch from like Maggie to Paul Creek. So like 15 and a half to almost 20. That's really, really runnable. And so you can kind of just cruise that whole section. So that there's a couple, like, I guess, hard rock fast sections that are in there, like where you can kind of just cruise things and actually run them. You don't have to just hike straight uphill. So that first 30 was pretty nice it was a nice intro to the day. Like going in this direction, you do get a little bit of a nice section there somewhat early.
Okay. Okay. Did you make up the term commiserate?
I might have.
Commiserate?
Yes. It was definitely
I
commiserate
never heard
out
that
there
before.
for sure. I don't know if I did that intentionally, but I'm definitely, I should have apologized in advance. I still am in some brain fog from the race and sleep deficit. So if this goes off the rail at any point, just reel me back in.
No, you've been doing great so far. And, there's a lot to break down this race. I know that these chunks are big, but I loved what you said about, some of the most highlighted moments for you that are coming up strongest in your memory are the ones where you had interactions with people, and you really had like emotional contact over, hey, how hot it is, how hard it is, or whatever it is with overcoming something that was going on at the course. And there's always an obstacle going on. There's always something, and I thought that was something that was really cool to hear. Those your memories are right now highlighted by interactions with other people.
Yeah, and it's not even really that close, because even the spots where I'm like thinking about the beauty of the course and that memory is still tied to like I shared that view with somebody, like the sunset up on Engineer Pass with James, like it was gorgeous, and like when I asked him after the race, hey, what was like your favorite part? And he mentioned that sunrise. I was like, or the sunset, I mean, I'm like, yeah, that was pretty awesome, So even when it's not like, even when it's course related, like all those memories are definitely tied to the experience that was shared out there.
Nice. Okay, are you ready to move on to miles 30 to 50?
Yeah. Let's do 30.
And I gotta
Go ahead.
What miles Kroger's Pass? I want to hear about that aid station because I've heard some good things about that aid station.
Yeah, that's not.
Is that
that's
in 30 to 50?
No, that's going to be after. That's in like almost miles.
Oh,
50,
my bad.
So we're getting ahead of ourselves there. So if we do, we'll say Sherman to like, we'll just do Sherman to Uray. So because Uray will be mile 56. So that's when, let's see. So Sherman, that takes you. Okay. So now I'm just kind of replaying it in my head. So this is when the heat really started getting us. So you leave Sherman and you run there's like a bit of a road stretch with a short break of a single track pretty early on that takes you from mile like 30 up to like about 32 and a half, 33, to get you ready for the Handies climb. But it's totally exposed and very hot, and there's OHVs on there. So that's when the heat really started getting us in the dust. And so we were just starting to get demoralized, which is not the way you want to have to go into hiking your 14er, 30 miles in, being just already pretty wrecked. So when we hit Burrows, I was super focused on I needed to get some cold stuff in. I just wanted to get as much cold water as I could. And so I was very fortunate that a friend of mine, Anna, was working that aid station. So when I came in, she's just like, came right to me. What do you need? So her and another guy hooked me up, got me all these all my cold drinks that I wanted and everything. That was another pretty short aid station. Didn't spend too much time there, but then the climb started up Handies, and it was cool because at this point now it was like Darla, myself, this guy Ben, who was awesome. I spent a ton of time in the lead up to the race with him, hanging out with him and his dog in the mornings at the park. He went and got his fifth finish this year. And then another woman, Christina, I think, and maybe somebody else had like kind of all linked up at one point. So we were literally climbing this thing together, just kind of helping each other out, keeping each other moving. And everything was pretty decent. I mean, it was still really hot, but there was at least a bit of a breeze, which helped. And then, the occasional stream crossing where you can dunk your hat or whatever. But then, going up that, and this was another spot where, like a human connection that I am associating with the race was we hit about tree line, and I look up and we see a guy standing there. His name's Yassine Daboon. He's actually been waiting, I think, 10 years to get into the race. He's a really fast guy. So when I looked up and saw him, I'm like, he should not be in the same place that I am right now. And I got in there. And so unfortunately, he was there because he sprained his ankle really badly already. And so he was around me most of the day, the rest of the time. And so we had a handful of different interactions out there, but man, talk about a tough dude. Like the people, he's a representation, like being able to finish that race on a sprained ankle for probably 70 miles. I can't even imagine the pain that he was in. And, so,
yeah.
it's just,
Whew.
pretty impressive. So yeah, so we,
What would it?
that was the up and over
What,
handy section, which is just tough in general.
what would it take for someone to get pulled off the Hard Rock course? I mean, it's person to person, of course, but like, gosh, like it makes you wonder. Like, Yassine Daboun is definitely known to be a very fast runner, and to
Yeah.
finish on that sprained ankle, I got to wonder if what was going through his mind was like, I've been waiting 10 years to get this.
Oh, it had
Nothing's
to
pulling
be.
me off.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it had to be because even when like when I passed, like when we caught him and he was icing his ankle in the creek is why he was standing there. I told him, I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. I know how long you've been waiting. I really hope there's something you can do to turn around and get the finish. And so there was a bunch of us that were cheering for him, out there, like on the course, like we were talking about it, like, oh man, yeah, I saw he's in rough shape. I really hope he can get it done. And so to actually see him persevere and get through that and finish it with the help of his pacers and his crew was, man, it was a testament to the human spirit. That's for sure. I just couldn't believe it. It was pretty impressive to watch.
Absolutely. It's fantastic. And kudos to Yassine Daboun for getting his first finish at Hard Rock. And hopefully he's got many more to come.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do without spraining his ankle out there. I think it'll be a fun race to watch if he's healthy. But yeah, I guess for the rest of that section, you're going up and over handies, and it's just tough. Like I did not feel like I did that very well, and I just struggled to get up there. And I think it was a little bit mental. I think the heat was getting to me. Calorie intake had started slowing down. So, and once you get up above 12, or once I get up above 12,000 feet, it's just hard to take in calories to begin with. And, you're moving so slow at that point. You're spending a good couple hours up there, getting from 12 to 14 and back down. So, that was the first real suffering that I went through out there. That was a struggle of a section for sure, getting up over handies. Even said something when we were coming down the other side, and Darla had pulled away from me, and when I caught back up to her coming down the other side, the first thing I said, I was just so down on myself. I was like, I really don't feel like I did that as well as I could. And she's like, don't worry, Paul, neither did I. It was bad. So there was a few of us that definitely struggled up and over that one. Handies it's tough. It's a tough stretch, but it's beautiful when you get up there.
It sounds like it's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never been to handies, and it's definitely there's many places on that course that are well known, and handies is well known because it's the 14er on the course. Yeah. But I got to say, I was watching you carefully from the GPS going over handies. So I was watching on map progress. And I suffered too.
Nobody should have to watch a dot move that slowly on a map. It's painful. You think your eyes are just going to stop working because it's not moving at all.
Oh man, I was worried about you though. It was going slow, and it was just like, and I know handies is tough. I know that it's a long time, like you said, a couple hours to get up and over and back down, below 12,000 feet, and the pace was slow on the tracker, and it was like, oh my gosh, like hopefully Paul's doing okay out there.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, all things considered, like I was doing as well as probably everybody around me was probably doing in about the same shape. It's just all slow. Like it was like, step, breathe at times where, cause you've already been putting in a solid 30 miles. It's like, it got me. It really did. And then, so I just, I kept reminding myself, there was a couple of mantras I had going through my head at that point. Be here now is one of them that I always come back to, like stay present, not worry about like, oh God, if I can't get up over handies, how am I going to do the rest of this? But the other one was, it always gets better when you start going down. So if you could just get to the top and start descending, you're going to feel better. And I just kept reminding myself that just get to the top because it'll feel better on the other side. And, eventually I got there. Just took a little while.
Yeah. Do you think that, the going up and you got to take a step, take a breath, take a step, take a breath, you're at high elevation. Do you think that actually kind of helped you save some energy for later in the race and kind of a backward step way of thinking?
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, that I was still thinking about that too. Like, I was still thinking about making sure I wasn't overexerting myself. So anytime I did start to feel like my heart, like if I could start hearing my heartbeat in my ears or like feeling it in my throat, I was like, okay, that I can't. That's not sustainable. I got to dial it back a little bit. So that was a big part of like
Yeah.
I was taking deep breaths in between those steps to like try and control my heart rate. So I just didn't. So I didn't get too carried away because I have a bad habit of, just wanting to get things over and charging through it. And then that's not going to end well if I keep burning matches like that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you were really well self-controlled.
It was a big goal. Like that was a big, big focus for me in my build up and like even like my preparation going in, like when I was, so I, like for the 3 weeks before the race, I was just living out of my truck. So at night, if I like, I'd read a book, but I'd also pull out like the course description and read through that and kind of just visualize how much each of those sections was going to hurt and how much it was going to suck. And like, so, okay, if it's going to be hard, like what's that level of effort going to have to feel like to go through it, knowing that I'm still going to feel good later to be able to push towards the end.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you mentioned that. I was actually going to ask you if you had done some visualization exercises in advance, just with, there's a lot to that course and there's a lot of self management, self control, a lot of decision making, a lot of micro decision making. And I think that that visualization in advance helps with having a little bit more automated decision making when the experience is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, um, it's jumping ahead a little bit, but there's another section that there was one other section that I really suffered in. And I think a big part of why I did was because I hadn't done that section in a while and I didn't get a chance to preview it in the weeks before the race. So I didn't have a fresh view of what it was like in my head. So I forgot how long and just never ending the climb was. So I never actually, like, in my head, I just kind of like walked through it and then I got on it and it just seemed so much longer than I remembered. So that section almost broke me.
Yeah, good point though. Good point about the effect and effectiveness of visualizations and just helping with your decision making as you're going through it. And I know exactly what section you're talking about because we talked about a little bit
Oh yeah.
on the course.
Yeah, because you had to deal with me right afterwards. So, but we'll get there.
I,
Yeah, the rest of this section is pretty mellow. Um, I picked up James at Animus Forks. We do a climb up Engineer Pass, which is all just OHV road to get up there. But that's where we had that awesome sunset. So it's not a super exciting section, but if you time it right, oh, it's beautiful because you get this epic sunset up off the pass. Then you drop down the other side, and that was fun because it's pretty much all it's like trail-ish. It's like right off the pass is off trail, and then you kind of link up with like a little bit of a use trail a little further down. So that's some fun running as it's getting dark. And now you're trying to like. I like to play a game at that point in the night where it's like, let's see how long I can go before I have to put my headlamp on. And so my rule is either if I trip or roll an ankle twice, either one of those things, like a total of 2 times, I'm like, all right, now I got to put the headlamp on because I can't see well enough. So we played that game for a little while, which was entertaining because,
wow.
like I said, James is kind of new to the ultra distance, so I was kind of like introducing him to some of the fun things you have to get yourself to get yourself through the nighttime.
Yeah. Paul, did we pick that up together? Because I do the same. I'm not as maybe like I wait to the last minute to put my headlamp on, but I don't wait to twist an
Oh yeah.
ankle.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to roll it too badly, but I roll my ankles plenty of times. So I'm like, all right, if I roll it twice, that clearly means I didn't see 2 solid steps that I should have taken. So, but
Yeah.
because I love just, I mean, I feel like, I don't know if it's a primal thing or if it's just like this attachment to like the feeling of being out there in the mountains or in nature where, you let your eyes adjust into that night mode kind of, and it's like, just see how far they'll go. And you just feel so connected to like, to the world around you as that sun's setting.
Yeah, I agree. And, I, as I mentioned, I love doing the same exact thing. And I think that, looking ahead after that, your vision is going to be stuck to a tunnel of light for the next, 8 hours or
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. So it's like trying to fight some of that eye fatigue that's going to build up. If you can hold that off as long as possible, there's definitely benefits to that. But yeah, so the Yeah, after engineer, then it's or after Animus Forks, then it's a fun section. Then it's literally 10 or no, it's over 10 miles of downhill. So you just have this long downhill. So it's a lot of fun, but it's
Whoa.
also a really dangerous section because if you push it too hard, you can definitely blow out your quads. Because you drop off that pass down to the engineer aid station, which is at mile 48 or 48 and a half. And then from there, you go all the way down to 56 and a half in Uray. So you get a pretty good long downhill. It's probably like, yeah, probably about 8 miles or so. Um, but
Wow.
it's like up on high Alpine Trail, and then you get down to the Bear Creek Trail, which is a much more established trail, and that takes you all the way down. And it's a really really fun stretch. But uh, James's job in that section was to make sure I didn't go too fast, and he did an excellent job of reminding me, like, because we would get carried away because we just start chatting and just be kind of like cruising this downhill and not pushing, but probably just running a little bit faster than we should. And all of a sudden, he would just be like, "Might want to dial it back a little bit." I'm like, "Okay," because I would just zone out and be so into the
Nice.
flow of the downhill that you start running a little hard, and that's just not something you want to do that early because you're not even mile 55 yet.
Right, right. Well, it seems like even though James has his first 100 miler coming up, it sounds like he has plenty of experience at endurance events.
Oh yeah, he's a very very high level triathlete, and has to be one of the most dedicated athletes. Like this guy's training and sleep schedule is impressive. From a he doesn't leave any stones unturned. He trains really really hard. He's very very good at it. So he was a fun person to have for that first section because there was definitely a lot of excitement and stoke coming from him getting into this sport. So that was fun.
Yeah. He was a lot of fun to I got to talk with him for I don't know how long, 30 minutes to an hour, if not more, at Chapman Gulch aid station.
Mhm.
And it was really great to talk to him. Really, really nice guy, and great to make a new friend with him. So this section, it ended in Uray, which is you're coming into a town. Is that what was that like mentally to come into Uray, where it's like there's a lot of lights, there's probably a lot of crews, a lot of people, a lot of fans. Did you stay long, or did you end up kind of just trying to get out of there as quick as possible?
Coming down in Uray, in this direction, you're coming down. Well, at least from the timing I came through is night, so it's actually really nice because the town's all just lit up. So you're coming down. It's actually a really cool view coming off of Bear Creek Trail and just seeing the town's lights on and stuff. So it's definitely quieter than if you're coming through during the daytime and like the tourists are all in town and everything like that. So coming in town at night isn't bad at all. It's pretty chill. Um, you just kind of run down one of the back streets and into the back side of the park. But it is one of the biggest aid stations, so it can be kind of a circus there, just because of the amount of volunteers and other crew that are there, and people just come there early and hang out because it is kind of a nice aid station because it's so big. So there's a good number of people. Fortunately, my crew is very good at like greeting me right at the entrance to the aid station, and then they just kind of shepherd me where I need to go. So it's like, okay, you got to go here to check in. Here's where you go if you want to see if you want any food from the aid station. Otherwise, we got our stuff set up over here, so come on over and you'll get your stuff there. Um, so the other nice thing about these big aid stations at Hard Rock, when you come in, you have an aid station volunteer that's just dedicated to helping you until you leave the aid station. So somebody would come over and just stand there, and Carrie would be asking me questions. And once I decided what I wanted, she'd turn around to leave to get it, and he would already be standing there saying, "I got it." And he would be gone, come right back, have the stuff. And
Cool.
so they like really take care of you there. It's pretty awesome. So we spent a little bit of time there because I think that was one of the aid stations. I changed my socks a handful of times along the course, like probably at least four times, which I was so glad I did. I've never done that before, and it was worth it because there's just so many water crossings. Um, but we spent a little bit of time there just getting that changed, getting some food, getting some calories in. Because it's the lowest aid station on the course, I kept hearing everybody say like it's super important to get in a bunch of good calories there because you can have a better chance of digesting it because you're down a little bit lower. That did not work for me. I put in a good number of calories, nothing crazy. I didn't want to like overstuff myself, but then we left Uray and we started the Camp Bird Road climb, and I didn't make it very far before I had to reset the stomach, unfortunately. So I emptied everything out, and that kind of made this section really tough because I emptied out the calories I had in my system. It was getting late at night. It was probably
Mm.
somewhere between, I don't know, maybe 10, 11 o'clock, somewhere in there. So, it's getting past that time where normally I'd be well asleep by now. So my body's starting to shut down. And so I'm falling asleep on the climb. I don't really have calories to keep me awake. And this was probably one of the mistakes I made. Probably could have started taking like my caffeinated salt pills here instead of waiting a little bit for those. But, so things were going downhill. And we get up to Governor's Aid Station, which is mile 65, about 64 to 65 after you're climbing all the way up this road. And I decided I was just going to take a break. I had to, like, if I could, I've dug myself into enough holes during these type of events to notice I'm starting to notice the symptoms as it's coming on. So it's like, okay, I know what hole I'm digging myself into here. I'm getting way too tired. I'm weaving on the road. I'm not getting in calories. I have to stop the bleeding, so to say. So we sat down, got a bunch of calories in, some really good stuff, and just decided, I was like, all right. I thought I had my pacer, Jameson, set a timer on his watch. I'm like, I'm going to close my eyes for a little bit. So we ended up being there. I think we ended up spending about 40 minutes at that aid station. I think I might have closed my eyes and dozed for like 5 minutes of that time, but we spent like 40 minutes there, which that allowed the salt, like the caffeinated pill that I took as I was coming into the aid station, and all those calories. It gave it everything enough time to digest. So when I did get up to start moving again, it was like a light switch had gone off for me, where I was wide awake again. I was fully talkative. We were moving again. So I honestly, I wish there was a way to actually get the number on this, but I would guess that 40 minutes in the aid station saved me 2 to 3 hours in the long term. If I would have just kept digging myself that hole, I think it would have slowed me down by multiple hours.
And as you were approaching there, was that the only time that you emptied your stomach, or did that happen?
Amazingly, yes.
Again, later in the race?
That's the only time I threw up the entire race. Yeah, that was it. And like my stomach and my nutrition is always my weakest thing in these races. Like, it's my biggest battle. You've seen it happen multiple times where my nutrition plan does not go well. But I worked with a nutritionist for this race, Meredith Terranova, who her husband actually ran the race and crushed it. She helped me put together a plan.
Paul's her husband?
Yeah, so Paul finished eighth overall. That's her husband, and that was his first race of the Rocky Mountain Slam. And I won't go down that rabbit hole, but if anybody Googles the Rocky Mountains Ultra Slam, it's a series of races that are just insanely difficult. And he started it with a crushing time at Hardrock.
Yeah, well, it sounds like for you to stay in Governors, going back to your comment, you stayed there for about 40 minutes. It probably saved you 2 to 3 hours. It certainly sounds like it if you had thrown up prior to getting there and you didn't empty your stomach after that.
Yeah, that turned things around so much. Like, I was, I wasn't taking in a ton of calories the rest of the way, but I was able to get calories in. Like, on the section with you, I couldn't believe that late in the race, I was able to take in, I took in at least 2 or 3 gels and like some chews. I wasn't pounding them, but I was able to get them in and just keep some calories flowing, which normally that late in the race, there's no way. My stomach would be normally done way before that. So there was definitely some benefit to working with somebody on that because it helped.
Yeah, well, I remember late in the race, you were, well, I wouldn't call it super late, but probably around like mile 83, 84, you were loving root beer at that time. Those little root beer
well, I love root
shot
beer
blocks,
anytime,
wherever they were.
Yeah, those root beer bonk breaker chews, they're caffeinated too. So not only do they taste awesome because they taste like root beer, but they got a little caffeine. So, that'll definitely keep me happy late in a race.
Nice. And dude, I love root beer too. And you gave me one of them and I was like, that tastes good.
Yeah.
I got to buy me some of those.
I wasn't going to share more than one. I'm sorry. I was pretty stingy at that point of the
day. Pacer, have all my food.
Yeah. I had to give you at least one to taste test though. Yeah. But that stop at that aid station was invaluable because then after that, we had to go up and over the infamous Kroger's Canteen aid station, which in this direction, you hit 3 really short or short but quite steep steps, like pitches that you have to go up. And this year, I'd never seen it before, but this year, all three of those pitches were completely covered with snow. Uh, Normally, the top pitch is always covered with snow unless it's super dry year. But all three pitches were covered with snow. So they actually dropped a rope, like a fixed line down the first pitch and the third pitch. The third pitch always has one because it is so steep, but they even added a fixed line down the first pitch. So if you wanted to hold a rope, you could to get up it, just to make it a little easier. Because you just had to kind of kick in steps into the snow. But the problem was getting there in the middle of the night like we did, it's all frozen. So you can't kick in steps. You can only kind of rely on the steps that are already there from other people. It was okay. I mean, I've got enough snow traveling experience. I wasn't too worried about it. I didn't take traction or anything like that. There was enough dirt and like grit in the steps that, traction wasn't too terrible. But, if you weren't super comfortable with it, a little bit of traction, you can get up it. They're just really steep climbs.
Yeah, and in the middle of the night too, that snow firms up pretty hard.
Yeah.
No matter what the conditions were, I would have used the rope just to get a little assistance.
Oh yeah, and on the third pitch, I definitely I didn't use the rope on the first one, but the third pitch I definitely did. That third pitch is extremely steep. It's pretty crazy. We had to down climb it one year, going the other direction in a super dry year, and we had to use a rope then too because the ground is just so steep that like all the rock and dirt just slide out from under you. So you're kind of like down climbing with a rope until you get to like a more gradual part on the bottom of that top pitch.
What did they do in the early days of Hardrock? I doubt they had a rope out there, or maybe they did, but I feel like they probably didn't.
No, I think they were probably just tougher than we are. I mean, the men and women that like went out there in those early days, where it was just some random advertisement in the back of Ultra Running magazine, and they're like, oh yeah, if you're interested, send us a letter and with whatever your qualification was or your desire to do it. And a lot of people went in blind, like they hadn't been in those mountains before, and then they're showing up and doing some crazy stuff.
That's hardcore.
Oh yeah, they were definitely tougher than we are. We get all these maps, GPS. I mean, you can follow the whole course on Google now if you want to, as a preparation for it. So I can't imagine going into something like this blind.
Yeah, and you had designated people at aid station specifically helping you out.
Yeah, exactly.
You got coddled.
They're out there carrying Aunt Jemima bottles and just like old school backpacks, trying to do whatever they can to make it from one mountain pass to the other.
Oh man, yeah, and it's like you're totally right though. Not having the GPS out there, and you're new to the area, you don't know the San Juans. I mean, my gosh, like that was almost like a totally different type of race.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. I mean, even now compared to when I used to go, when I first started going up, even the course markings have gotten much more consistent. Like in the past, it was a very minimally marked course. Like you really had to pay attention and you really needed to know where you were going. Now, I can't think of a single turn that I made on that course that wasn't well marked. Like it was obvious where we were going.
Yeah, it seemed like it was easy to navigate when I was out there pacing.
Yeah, it was good. It's definitely it's a great course, but top of those three pitches, that infamous Kroger's Canteen aid station that you mentioned, where we got our shot of tequila and our pierogi, and then started dropping down in Telluride.
Is that the tradition?
It is. Now, to be fair, it's not like a shot. Like it's like a thimble's worth of tequila, but the tradition is you do a shot of tequila when you're going through there. But the most amazing thing is like they have these portaledges set up where they're cooking like pierogies and stuff too. So I always get a pierogi when I'm up there too. So when I got up there,
what's a pierogi?
How have I not introduced you to pierogies yet? I grew up in a very a Polish area, so pierogies are like Polish dumplings basically. It's like a little bit of dough, and then inside like potato and cheese is kind of the standard, or you can have onion in there. But there's different varieties. But you cook them fried. Yeah, you can cook them boiled. It's not the best, but like fried with like a bunch of butter and onions, and yeah, it's a real nice treat for you. But because it's just like dough and potato, they go down super easy when you're out in the mountains. So I found it's like actually a really good like ultra food.
Huh. So with tequila, of course.
Well, I mean, when in Rome, I guess. If the tequila's being offered, I'm not going to turn it down. So it's like I don't even drink tequila. I don't even really drink anymore. But like there's certain times
Yeah.
where you just tradition dictates
Can't say no.
for a positive reason sometimes.
Yeah. So was it Joe Grant that was initiating the
It
peer pressure to
was.
take the thimbleful of
So
tequila?
I got up there, and Joe. I
Nice.
get up there, and Joe is like, "What can I get for you?" And I'm like, "I'll take a shot. Of tequila and a pierogi for me and my pacer." He's like, "All right, we can do that." And so we just sat down. He brings over the tequila. Another guy brings over a plate of pierogies. It was great. It was a nice little spot
Nice,
up there.
dude.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
and
how the heck do they get stuff up there to Kroger's with like those pitches are so steep?
yeah, and that's where it goes to show like how dedicated some of these volunteers are. Like these guys have to park well below there and hike in all of this stuff, and so they essentially will like dead rope it up. So they tie like bundles of things to rope and haul it up the pitch, and then do it each pitch to get it up to the top. And I mean, they're carrying up there just anything you could think of. Not only all like they do have some water up there too, so they're looking up jugs of water. So all the
Oh my
cooking
gosh.
equipment, the food they're cooking, all the stuff for them just to survive in this exposed notch for 48 hours. Well, more than 48 hours from the time they get up there till down. They're hauling a lot up there, and it's not easy work. Like so, you get up there and you're just like so appreciative that anyone would ever think to even do this. So the whole time I'm climbing up the pitch, I'm just asking how they're doing. Like, how's everything going tonight? Are you guys still doing okay? Because I'm like, man, I can't believe you're out here. This is intense.
Wow, that's a lot of weight to bring up to an aid station when you're
Yeah.
considering all that water weight, and to make sure all that water for every runner to go through. And then, is it also at Kroger's Canteen that they do the painting, or is that like a one? I swear I saw a YouTube video where Jamil Curry's like painting something on I think it was up at Kroger's Canteen. Was that going on this year?
It
Sounds like
wasn't
no.
not when I was there, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's happened in the past. Like it's an epic spot and like an iconic spot on the course, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay, so this was like something where it's like somebody had like I don't know, some sort of, I think it was a wood board out, and every runner that went by added to it and like maybe like drew their little self or whatever, signed it, and so it
Oh,
created this like
nice.
kind of awesome. Yeah, great idea.
Yeah, that's really cool. No, they didn't have that this year. That would be really cool though.
Another thing to haul up.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a reason they're not doing it anymore. They probably did it once and realized that was a really bad idea. Because if they're hauling that giant board up, it has to be strapped to somebody's back. And if a wind gust comes through or
Yeah.
something, that's going to end poorly.
Oh man. So
But
gosh, Kroger's
yeah.
Canteen sounds quite the place.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome up there. And then that next section you're just running all the way down into Telluride. That went all pretty well. It's downhill all the way for like 5 miles or something like that. And then the next section happened, which was this Telluride to Chapman. So that's like miles 73 to 82, and it was bad. This is the other one I mentioned earlier where this one almost broke me. You climb out of Telluride, and it's not too bad. You climb up, it's called Bear Creek. There's a lot of Bear Creek trails on this course. There's like, I think three or four different ones. This is Bear Creek Telluride. You climb out of there, and it links up with what's called the Wasatch Trail. And this trail is steep, but it's so much longer than I remembered. Like you hit a basin, you start kind of traversing the hillside around and through this basin, and it just takes forever to get where you're going. And you're going to what's called Oscar's Pass. And it just seemed like it would never end, and I couldn't move quick. I wasn't moving well. Like it was just so slow. So this was the one part of the course where my mind broke a little bit. Like I was more mentally strong during this race than any race I've ever done. But this section, I couldn't hold it together. I definitely got really upset during this stretch, just at myself, at the mountain, at everything. Just cumulative fatigue has started to really sink in, and there was more than a little bit of profanity. At one point, I just yelled something profane. My pacer's up ahead. He turns around. He's like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's just taking forever, and I don't know how else to express myself right now." So there was some choice words, but yeah, it was just a really tough section, And, eventually as the climb just wasn't relenting, I did finally get to the point where I'm like, there's nothing, like there's no other choice. You're just going to have to keep moving forward. So suck it up. So, that's when I started turning my mindset around a little bit there and got back to okay, be here now, just do what you can. If it's taking a break every 5-10 steps because you can't breathe, you got to do it. But we did eventually make it up to the top of Oscar's Pass. And then what I thought was going to be a nice downhill was anything but. It was basically a boulder field. You had to pick your way through. So there was no running. It was super unstable. It was not the nice, enjoyable downhill I was hoping was going to come after such a long, miserable uphill. So by the time I got down to you guys at Chapman at mile 82, I was just not in a great headspace. I did everything I could. So I think I got down to you guys and I might have snapped a little bit, threw my pack on the ground. I was like, I'm going to need a minute. And I felt so bad afterwards because I'm like, man, I've been in such a good spirits, like every aid station. The whole next section, I'm like, oh man, I feel so bad for the crew. So I did apologize to you guys all at the end, just so everybody knows. I don't like being a jerk, but sometimes the mindset doesn't go my way.
I don't think anyone noticed anything. I think everyone's like I don't think you came off as snappy at all. I thought you were just like, I'm tired. I need a minute. I need to sit down. That last section sucked. And everyone's like, yeah, it's hard rock. Like, take your time.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that because in my head it seemed way worse because I think in my head I was in such a bad place. And so I did try to put some kind of buffer on what was in my head versus what came out, but I wasn't entirely in control of how it was coming out. So I was hoping it didn't come across as bad as it seemed.
Well, and then we were also already like tempered in a way by seeing everyone that was coming down from Oscar's Pass was rocked, was just rocked. No one was coming out of Oscar's Pass looking good. Like everyone was coming to Chapman very banged up.
Yeah. Well, honestly, when I got to the aid station, it was in that bad of shape. And I looked around and I saw some of the other runners that are in there, and I consider them to be like high caliber runners, definitely above my ability level. That they were in the aid station at the same time I was and looked like I felt. I was like, okay, no, that section rocked a lot of us. Like it was just, and then sure enough, like when we left that aid station, we caught up to some other runners and pretty much that's all anybody was talking about was how bad that Wasatch Trail climb up to Oscars was because it just got every one of us and everybody was just complaining about it. And then we would start talking about something else. But yeah, so
everyone
got
was,
me,
yeah.
It definitely got me. I was glad we were able to turn things around after that because if the whole rest of the race went that way, it would not have been an enjoyable finish.
Yeah. No, you something I don't know if it was the root beer bonk breakers or what, but taking those right before whatever happened at Grand Swamp Pass, it seemed like that was a pivot.
Yeah, I think, and that was something else I've been thinking about, kind of the last day or so, because I do believe that like as much as would have liked to have had a faster time for sure. Of course, who doesn't always want to have a faster time? But I don't think I could have had a faster time out there this weekend. Like I think what I did out there was pretty close to an expression of what my ability was on the day. And I think things like that, the climbs up Kroger and our climb up Grand Swamp were like a good representation of that in comparison to that Wasatch Trail climb. Because a lot of my training, because Pikes Peak got late snow and then just didn't melt out, I didn't do nearly as many like climbs all the way up to 14 and all the way up in like these long multi-hour climbs on Pikes that I had hoped I would do. So a lot of my climbing and gain was coming in things like 30 to 60 to maybe 90-minute climbs. So they weren't super long. So on those sections where like we hit Grand Swamp Pass and it's just this short, steep, loose thing that you just got to get done. I think that's where my training kind of like transferred over. It was like, okay, I'm used to these real short, hard, steep climbs that you just do, get them done, and then you can kind of cruise afterwards versus that Wasatch climb taking as long as it did. I think that's where it got to me mentally because I hadn't done like many of those in training. So I didn't have like the mindset to be able to just like grind it out for so long.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And Grand Swamp Pass it's short, very steep, almost scary steep.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seemed like your training did transfer right over to it because you We were in a bit of a conga line there, and you were not in the lead of the conga line, and then next thing you know, you're on top well before everyone else.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that, I mean, that's obviously huge. That's a huge credit to you. Like there, you know, you led that route for me to get up it, and I've been in your shoes before, where this is a very challenging section. It's an iconic section of the course because it is so incredibly steep and it's so loose that every step you take, if your foot doesn't slide down, you're definitely kicking rocks down. Like there's no steps that you're taking that are a completely solid step. There's always ground moving the whole way up. And you and I have done a lot of that. You have done even more, far more than I have in the Sierras with that kind of terrain. I've done a good bit of it, and we've done a decent bit of it together. So, you know, when the group started going one way and you're like, this way looks a little better, I was like, dude, I'm not thinking clear. You're picking. And I think I even said something along the lines of just pick the route and I'm going to follow you. And it made my life so much easier because I didn't have to think about a single step I took. You know, I was just putting my steps where and like going the direction you were going, trying and hitting the same rocks you were hitting because I knew they'd be more stable. And that is so much easier than picking the route because I've been the one picking the route, and the whole time you're trying to gauge like, okay, how bad a shape is that guy in? Is he, or you know, or in my case, like how bad a shape is that woman in? Like, is she going to be able to follow these steps? And what do I have to do to pick a good line? And dude, you crushed it. Like you picked such a good line. We got up that thing so quick. It was so much fun. Like I mean, you and I love that kind of scrambling stuff. So that was just a really fun aspect to have during our section, you know?
You know, and that's another great, you know, for me, that was, as a pacer, there was many highlights as a pacer, but that was something that we really shared strongly and something that we've shared strongly in the past. And as we got going on Grant Swamp Pass, we were taking a step up and almost like sliding back a step and a half, 2 steps. And I was just like, we got to get better purchase. Like we got to pick a better line that has better purchase. And so I was like, okay, like I think I see something. Let's give it a shot. And it worked out. It worked out really well.
Yeah, I can't imagine having gotten up that quicker than we did. Like I haven't been able to plug my I haven't plugged my watch in yet, so I haven't been able to download the file. So I'm hoping it has our. I'm very interested to know how quick we made it up that because that was a lot of fun. Like it felt like we were moving.
I know. And I mean, at that point, Grant Swamp Pass is probably like mile 84.
It's got to be because yeah, because I mean Chapman's 82, so yeah, it's got to be at least 84 by the time you get
That's
up there.
amazing.
Yeah, so yeah,
Dude, that's amazing what you did at mile 84.
It was that was a good time, and dude. So you have a video that you put out on your social of me like standing at the top of it in the snow, just letting out this scream. I don't really remember doing that. Like I saw the video, I'm like, I remember like kind of yelling, but I don't remember like spreading my arms and like screaming to the heavens because I must have had like some adrenaline going at the top of that climb or something because I blacked out. I think I was just so intense.
Yeah, no, you got
I wasn't thinking at all.
Oh man, you got to the top and like I was pulling my camera out of my vest and I pressed play on the video and the timing, I pressed it maybe a quarter second before you just went, yeah! Like you had your poles in the air and everything. And it was like, oh my gosh, I barely captured that moment.
Oh, that was hilarious. Yeah, I barely remember doing it. I think I was just so amped at how much fun we had. Like it was just like this adrenaline rush doing that climb like we did. It was so much fun. And that, I mean, heck, that goes back to, you know, something we talked about in the previous episode, you know, one part of my A goal was having as much enjoyment out there as I could. And I do feel like I maximized, like there were those couple down sections on, you know, those 2 climbs, but I had a lot of enjoyable moments throughout this entire event. And that must've just been one of the best ones based on, you know, the innate or the, just the automatic reaction that came from it.
The automatic reaction while you were blacked out.
Yeah. The first time I saw the video clip, it's like, man, I mean, I remember kind of yelling, but I didn't think I went that crazy. Like, I didn't realize I like stood there spread armed and everything.
Yeah. Adrenaline was pumping for sure. It was pumping for me, honestly. Like it was, you know, I'm fresh on my feet. I'm only 2 miles into pacing you and overcoming Grant Swamp Pass. I had adrenaline.
That's awesome. Yeah, that was a fun section, man, and that just led into. I mean, we had a great final 18 miles, and we had so much fun. You know, it's like All the way from Chapman to the Camp Traverse aid station, that was good. We might have pushed. Well, I mean, I can't say we pushed too hard because we still finished strong, but like I was nervous we were pushing a little too hard on that section. And the temperatures were starting to come up again a little bit, and I knew we still had like another 11 or like 13 miles to go after we hit that. But when we got there, I was like, all right, well, it's not that big a deal because the next section there's going to be some climbs. We're going to have to take it easy. And that was another section I had forgotten how hard it was. Like I forgot how hard those last two Putnam climbs are. Those are tough, and especially with the heat. And that's when you were talking about earlier. That's when I had to start laying down in the creeks because my core temperature would just get so high it was like completely sucking my energy out. But man, those laying down in the creek and getting out and having that little breeze hit, it was like a second life each time I did that. That was awesome.
Yeah, it's a good hack to have out there. And I agree with you. We came off of Grand Swamp Pass. We both had adrenaline going. And I was reflecting on that too. If we took the downhill too fast there and the time being, maybe the argument was there that we did take it too fast, but how everything played out when you finished, how quickly you did the last 6 miles, I think we did okay with it. But, the decision making is very tricky at that time in the race.
Yeah, and I mean, most importantly, it was also a lot of fun. Like we had a lot of fun coming down that section. Like it would have been hard to hold back at that point. Like it was so late in the race, and we were having so much fun. Like it would have been a bummer if somebody said, "Hey, we should probably dial this back." Like neither one of us wanted to say it at that point. Yeah. It was just too enjoyable.
It was so enjoyable, and there was a lot of people out there cheering on the ascent part. As our descent, they were going uphill, going up towards Island Lake. There's a lot of people cheering for you, and like we're now at say mile 85. We got 17 miles to go. Do we push the downhill at that point, or do we not? And that's something that's really tough. But I got to say, one thing that I really appreciated about this experience with pacing you was that you were very comfortable to say, "Hey, Brian, let's dial it back." Because I'm trying to push you. I'm like, let's let's push to the finish here, but wisely, not doing it in a way that's going to just kill you and end up making you finish an hour, 2 hours later. It's got to be done in a wise, humble way. But I really appreciated you during pacing you that you would say, "Hey, Brian, let's dial it back," and it'd be like, "Hey, Paul, great decision. Let's definitely dial it back."
Yeah, I think that's something that comes, like, we're fortunate enough to have had a lot of experience out together, doing not just like during races, but just on our own runs, like training runs and stuff in the past. And I think we have a really good understanding of the other person. And it's like if I'm saying that, it's like, okay, yeah, it's probably a little too hot because if it wasn't, I wouldn't say anything and I would just hang on your heels and like we would just go. So we have enough trust and understanding of each other that in those kind of moments, it's like, okay, no, he's not just trying to like weasel out of like making putting a little work in here. Like we would both put it in if we had it.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that's a great point. I mean, we've suffered so much together through various types of adventures and runs and whatnot that I know you like to suffer. I know you like to suffer. And I've always been impressed by the level of suffering that you can bring. I mean, you really can dig deep when needed. And you tend to enjoy it seems like too. But so when you're saying I need to dial it back, like, yeah, I agree.
I don't always enjoy the suffering, but I do find there are some fun discoveries to be found on the other side of it. So if you can find some enjoyment in it, it definitely helps get through. And you're getting into the last 10 or so miles, it's the mind starts getting a lot funnier at that point. And because you're going to finish at this point, barring something catastrophic.
Yes.
And so that takes so much of the weight that you've had on all day. And now it's just, all right, let's just have fun because we know we're going to get it. Like the goal is there. We've waited so long for this. We've put in so much time. And it's like, all right, now we're just going to enjoy as much of this as we can. So that means running a little harder than we should, then so be it. If it means, hey, there's somebody that we want to chase and try and catch in the last little bit, why not have some fun with it?
Yeah. And you certainly did that. I think, for the last 6 miles from the Putnam aid station to the finish line, it's as I just mentioned, 6 miles, and you had the 5th fastest time there for the race.
I think so. Somebody texted me that afterwards. I haven't looked at the numbers, but I think they mentioned something along those lines on like the live stream. So But yeah, I don't know. I just know we were moving. I know we were moving and we were having fun. That's all I know about it. Like when we caught somebody very quickly out of the Putnam aid station, but we kind of knew like we had seen them earlier, so we knew we were kind of reeling them in. But then we were just flying down towards the river, and the closer we got to the river, we knew like we were just having a good time. And I didn't know if we were gonna like see anybody else. I was just running hard because I'm like, man, this is just so much fun. Like this dream is coming true. Let's just let it go. And so we were moving pretty good. We hit the water crossing. Well, and then the other thing too, we started realizing like, oh, sub 35 is going to be like pretty like this pretty like a pretty good option at some point. So we're like, okay, well, let's push and let's see how far under 35 we can get. And then when you said, well, now we can get under sub 34, like 34:30 is a good option or a good target goal. So we started picking it up again, after you said that. And then we cross the river and we see somebody and we're like, all right, well, let's see if we can pass somebody else. And we did. We had fun like chasing them and passing them and cheering them on as we went by and telling them, let's go get that rock. So it's just so much fun in those miles. Like after all day and just how enjoyable everything went, even those low moments, I'm sure at some point when I sit down and like can kind of process everything, there'll be some fun to be found in those too. But man, finishing the way we did, that was a good time. And that was my goal. Like it goes back to what I was saying earlier. The slower I went earlier, the more fun I could have later. And so us being able to do that was like just a testament to be like, okay, I think I ran this race about as well as I could have this year. Like things went overall really well.
Yeah, and I think you put together a beautiful race with taking it easy and then being able to run strongly at the end, being able to finish with that much energy. It feels just fantastic. And you were running the uphills there in the last 2 miles, which was, oh my gosh, that's another impressive aspect of your race.
Well, I mean, after we passed the last person, the last woman, we were also running a little scared too. We didn't want to get caught. So like you can't pass somebody in the last like mile and a half and then let them re-catch you. So it was a matter of trying not to have blown up like a mile from the finish line. That would have been pretty bad.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. So, Paul, you finished at 18th place, 34 hours and 11 minutes.
Yep. Yeah. 34:11. I don't know what the seconds were. I'd never paid that close attention to my time. It was like, yeah, but it was 34:11 was the finish time. So, and that was,
Jeez, that's amazing.
I was saying if I can get somewhere in the mid 30s, I feel like I'd be happy with that. And I can honestly say and this is hard for me to say, this is something I've been working on, but I'm proud of that race. Like I'm proud of like the race that came together there because, the help I had from, we talked about it in the previous episode, Nick from Lightfoot Coaching to get physically ready. The fact that my legs were as strong as they were at the end of this race is not something I ever thought I would experience. Like after 33,000 feet a gain, my legs still felt and descent. Like they could do whatever I wanted them to do. My legs were so strong. It was crazy. My energy fluctuated, but not nearly as much as normal. Anytime I did have lows, it was usually just energy fluctuations, but it was never a question of like strength. And like Nick also helped me a ton with the mental side of things and just like putting together some positive mindset and some mantras. And that came together better than it ever has in another race too. So there's a lot of things about this race where even when I was out there, I don't know if I mentioned it to you or not, but I know I talked to like Jameson when he was pacing me, that I was just really proud of how things were going so far. Like I was making good decisions. I was really doing my best to like just be smart for as long as I could. Cause I knew eventually it was going to stop and I was going to be an idiot out there. And so, but I was like, be smart as long as you can. And then you can have fun at the end. And I mean, it paid off. Like I thought we had a really good time from the time I picked up my first pacer till the finish, even with that Wasatch climb, like kicking my butt there in the middle, for the most part, that was a really good, that had to be one of the better second halves of 100 I think I've ever experienced.
Wow, Paul, you absolutely deserve to be proud of yourself. And, as you said, I'll say it in a little bit different way, but it's the same thing you said. An opportunity came your way and you maximized that opportunity. Your legs felt good at the end. Definitely deserve to be proud of yourself. And I'm proud of you. It's something that I think we were kind of guessing at this at the pre-interview episode number 66. I think we started talking about Hard Rock in about 2012. So 11 years later, that
Yeah.
opportunity came, and you've been dreaming about that opportunity, dreaming about it, and when the day came, not even the day, when the time came to start training, I don't know, you started training 6 months ago, 5 months ago, whatever it was, but you maximized, everything leading up to it, and you maximized the day. I mean, that's something to be proud of.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's where a big source of the pride comes from is the amount of work that I put in. Like, I was talking to my wife about this on the drive home, and I was like, with this event having been so long coming, I don't really live a life of delayed gratification very often. It's like a pretty easy going. Like if I want something, I just kind of go do it. It's like, oh, I don't like this job anymore. I'll just go do this other job. Or, I met this woman. I want to marry her. We're going to get married, where this one was like this forced wait of so long to like accomplish it that it has this, I feel it's just like this incredible level of just, I haven't been able to put it into words. Like I can't really describe like how I feel afterwards because it's been such a long wait. And then putting in the time and the hours and everything that led up to it over the last 8 years, plus the last 6 months of like dedicated focus. And then to have it actually come together, it's pretty surreal. It's just, I guess surreal is kind of the only way I can describe it.
Yeah, it's definitely surreal. I think about the question a lot, and I receive this question a lot, and that is, Brian, why do you do ultras? And there's a lot of things in life that I am really proud of. Proud, being a husband, proud being a stepfather, proud being a son, proud being a brother. Um, but on a kind of a level of kind of just primal adventuresome, where I get to go out and really test myself and like really feel maximally alive, get out of the norm of my daily habits. And something that it has input, all my hard work, input, all my training to get to a result. And that's
Mm-hmm.
directly related to the amount that I want to put in for training to get that result. The level of pride is a different type of pride that's unmatched with those other things that I am very prideful of in my life. There's just not a pride that matches it compared to these 100-mile ultra marathons that I get from them.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's not just I mean, I guess it is. It's just the level that it takes, the level of dedication that it takes. And it's not just a dedication to doing something, but it's a dedication to doing something hard. And I think that's where, like, it'd be different if, like reading or like I put together puzzles, it's like, yeah, there's some challenge to it and stuff. But if I put together a puzzle every day, which I've done, I don't feel like when I go out and I test my physical limits for whatever reason, I just respond more physically than mentally to this kind of stuff. So the dedication to doing something so challenging on such a consistent basis, and then having that produce a result, I think is like for me at least a key element to it. It's like it's got to be a physical exertion for me to have that that really those realizations that come along with like the process to get to a place.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I was thinking, as you're saying that, I was thinking about the camaraderie behind Hard Rock. And I think that there's just a type of camaraderie, there's camaraderie in all different types of forms. It's
Mm-hmm.
on a continuum, but there is certainly camaraderie behind doing something very challenging and difficult. And no matter when you finish, if it's at the golden hour or if you're at first place, you finish. And there's just such a camaraderie because it was so challenging and difficult.
Absolutely. I mean, the ability to share or like the ability to experience shared suffering, even though you're not going through the exact same thing as somebody else, you know, you're going through something as close to each other as you possibly can, even though you're not in each other's heads. So maybe you don't know how the other person's responding. You do still understand that they're going through something incredibly difficult. And so there is a shared understanding that comes from that for sure. I mean, even like one of my favorite things that they do at the awards ceremony is before they start announcing the finishers, they have everybody who started but didn't finish stand up. And consistently, those people get the biggest round of applause because, for whatever reason, their day didn't go right for them, and they couldn't make a cutoff, or something happened, they got injured, they had to pull from the race. But they're still out there just pushing themselves, testing their limits, and that's something that anybody can respect. That's done it as well.
Yeah, what another great touch by the Hard Rock committee and everyone behind it. That's just fantastic. Paul, as we wrap up this episode, what would be your 3 tips for someone starting to say it's, Hard Rock occurs mid-July and someone has gotten their name pulled from the lottery and they're starting to prepare, say in March or April or so. What would be kind of your 3 tips for that person in their preparations for Hard Rock?
Start years in advance. Give yourself as much time in the mountains as possible, because this is a course that it favors people. I mean, it favors a skill set. Like, you don't I mean, there's definitely a mental component. Like, you can be tough enough to kind of push yourself through anything, but the higher your level of skill in moving in the mountains, the more you're going to be able to enjoy the event. So like, all the time that we've spent in the Sierras or the Rockies or, whatever, being up high, moving efficiently through challenging terrain, being able to know how your body reacts to those altitudes. And like I know when I'm about to hit 12,000 feet every time. Like, I can consistently, like, it's a game I play with myself. When I start feeling a certain way, I click on my watch to see my elevation, to see how close to 12K I am, because I've spent enough time going past that mark that I know how my breathing feels. I know I'm like, okay, it's starting to get hard. My legs aren't moving as well. So the first one is just get as much physical experience as you can in big mountains. Like, it's crucial. Fitness can take you a long way, but having that experience makes a big difference. The other one I would say is going to go to a saying that came out of this year's event from the Silverton, or from the Hard Rock staff, is you don't have to put on a bib to be part of the Hard Rock family. I can't recommend enough the importance of being a part of the event, a part of the experience before you actually go there to run the event yourself. If you have any chance to get out there to pace, crew, volunteer, whatever you can to become part of the event beforehand, it was invaluable for me. I mean, for many reasons. One being that it created such an emotional level of investment in the race and the community around it, that I couldn't do anything but put everything I had into the training. I felt like it would be disrespectful to all the people that had done the race in the past, all the people that put it on, the people that allow it to be put on in these gorgeous, very difficult environment to manage. Having that connection and experiencing the course and the community ahead of time, that'll give you so much fuel when things really start to suck out there. And it's like having that mental reservoir of like, this is like why you're here. That's huge. Third, this is just going to be a shameless plug for a couple people that really helped me, but get some help. Like, this is not something you can do on your own. Having a coach to help with training is huge. That, like, Nick with Lightfoot Coaching was such a massive help to me. I've never been that physically strong in a race in my life. Having Meredith Terranova help me with my nutrition plan was huge. I mean, the fact that I spent that much time up high, was still consistently getting in calories, and only threw up one time in a 100-miler was, for me, impressive. Like, that's a win in my book for sure. But then, yeah, just surround yourself with, like, I'm going to throw a bonus one on there. I know you asked for 3, but I'm long-winded, so you're getting a 4th. Surround yourself with amazing people. The crew that I had with me is as, if not more, responsible for what happened out there that I am, because they helped every step of the way. There were friends that were so willing to be a part of it. They basically just came out to help my wife, who's my crew chief. So kept her fed, so everybody works so well together. If you're as fortunate as I am to have amazing friends and people around you that want to help you accomplish cool things, take advantage of them. I know that's okay. That's probably not the wording to use, is take advantage of them, but take advantage of the fact that they want to help you. Invite them out, make them a part of it, because having that community around you is such a benefit and it's such a boost when things get hard.
Oh, wow. Wow, Paul. Well, those are great final tips here of the episode. We've been talking for nearly an hour and 20 minutes. For those listening out there, this is going to be episode 67 of the Old Bodies Outside podcast. I recommend listening to this episode in conjunction with episode number 66. It was Paul's pre-Hardrock interview. Paul, as I mentioned, we've been talking for about an hour and 20 minutes. I feel like I could go for another hour and 20 minutes. This flew by, but we will let the listening audience go because they're probably bored of us. And just want to say thanks again, man, for letting me be a part of your experience out there. And I know that you had mentioned to me that you felt bad when your name got pulled for Hardrock because you had been in the lottery for a year or two less than me. And honestly, like this couldn't have worked out better. So you really showed me the way. You got me to get out to Silverton to experience it. One of your tips there. I got to hear about how your training went. Another tip, and I also got to see how powerful it was to surround yourself by an amazing crew. So, thanks for letting me be a part of the experience.
No, I can't tell you. I mean, I appreciate you being there so much. I appreciate you letting me come on here and mind dump while I'm still kind of in post race fog. So it'll be interesting to see if see what people think of this one, if it makes any sense at all, or if we were just spent all this time rambling. But now they kind of have an idea of what it's like being on the trails with us.
Yeah. Well, I'll hit you up next week to re-record it since it's not going to have anything to it.
Perfect. That sounds great. I'll talk to you then.
Okay, Paul, I'll stop joking around. Let's throw on that outro music and we'll call it an episode. Oh, my outro music is not working. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Even the music got sick of listening.